Okay, so we're back, and we're going to talk about reinstalling your new brake pads and rotors. So remember in the last video we took our caliper and our rotors off, so I had my rotors turned and resurfaced. I went and I got my pads and we're ready to go. So first you want to start with this rail right here. So that unbolts here. There should be like some type of a rubber bushing like this one. I don't know if you can see how it kind of squishes. So there's going to be a bolt here and a bolt there. And that's actually how you would change brake pads if you weren't doing rotors. So you would just loosen that one and then loosen the other one and then take one of them completely out, and then your caliper would just flip up and open, and then you'd be able to put your new pads in and then close it back up and put these two bolts back in, and then you're done. But since we are also doing rotors, I took this whole thing off. Now, that being said, I now have to remove those. So, I have my impact right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those two bolts out. So, there's one. So, I'm actually going to only take out one of these. I'm just going to flip this open. See what I mean? How it's kind of like a gate almost. It just opens and closes. So that's what we're doing here. Alright, now there's these metal pieces in here. I can get one out to show you. These are shims. So basically they just protect the pad and make sure that the end of it doesn't get damaged. So you have two of those. Make sure you don't damage these if you don't get new ones with your new pads, but I got new ones, so I don't have to worry too much. Alright, we are going to set that right there. Now, my brand new shims right here, both of them. And then we're going to do one at a time here. So for this, you just want to make sure that they go in the same way that they came out. So for me, that is with the curved edge towards what would be the top. And then just going to kind of squish them in there. Make sure they're kind of centered in there. So you might have to pull them out and readjust them once or twice, but that's okay. So push one side in, and then, excuse me, we're going to push the other side in, just like that. Now, at the corners, sometimes it doesn't get pushed all the way down, so I have this here. It's a pick, and this one was actually broken, so it's not too sharp. So I'm just going to go around and push it down in all the places that it might be up. So what this does is it just makes sure that your shims are doing what they're supposed to, and they get all the way into the corners so that your pad is always at the right distance away from your rotor. So we're going to put our second one in over here. Alright, we're going to grab our pick again. Push it in. Make sure you get in the corners really good. Alright, so almost got it here. Alright, there we go. So, now that we have that, I'm going to grab my new pads. So these right here are my new pads. So these are a ceramic coated pad with no copper. So basically what that means is they're really good at dissipating heat, and they have really long life and braking abilities. So these are going to last me probably for the next 2 or 3 years, and if I was to be driving it a little bit harder, you know, maybe somewhere in the realm of still 2 years. So it really all depends on how much you're driving and when, you know, how hard you're driving, how often you're driving, that kind of thing. So with mine, I have this little thing right here. It's just a tab. So that's just to hold it in place. And so I like to drop one side in, and then you kind of slide the other side through. Sometimes it's not easy and you have to give it a little bit of force, but just remember to be careful. So the last thing you want to do is break it. So we're just going to kind of shove it in there. Alright, now you're going to try and go this way. There we go. So I just push one side in until it stops, and then go to the other side. Then you might have to kind of wiggle it a little bit, but we are almost there. Oh, hold on, I'm gonna take this out real quick. Let's try this again. Okay, well, it doesn't seem to be going in, so let's maybe give this one more shot, and then might have to take a minute to figure out what's going on here. Almost had it. Alright, there we go. Got that side in. So I push it all the way, spread apart, so that when you go to put everything back together, it's, you know, nice and easy. So now we have our second one here, and then this one should be fairly easy. I'm just going to slide it from the outside. So there's these little tabs down here. Let me show you right there. So this tab here, got to make sure that those are pushed down so that the pad can lock in. So we're going to do that now. That side, and shove that side in, pull it back a little ways. All right, now go ahead and flip it back. Just be careful, because sometimes things are going to bump and they're going to hit. So one thing is that your brakes may push these pistons out. So I have these large channel locks. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squeeze the piston, and what this does is it closes it enough that you can get your brake pads on. So give it a little squeeze. This other side. And that should do her. So all I did was I squeezed here and here with the channel locks on the back. Oh, almost dropped it. So you just squeeze there, and then it makes the piston push fluid back through the line, and then that way you are able to get it in there. So now we're gonna try this again. Fold it down. See, drops in nice. Here is my bolt, and I'm going to be using blue Loctite. So Loctite, all it does is it's basically it's a type of glue that they use on threads so that the bolt does not back itself out. So you tip it over, and just, you know, one drop should normally do it, and then you just kind of, I like to spread it around, so something like that. It's just one drop, and it doesn't go all the way around. So then what we're going to do, we're going to pick this back up, and we are going to put our bolt back in. Uh-oh, can't quite move my chair. go. Drop that in there. All right, now have both of our pads in, and that is it for the pads. So now I'm gonna go grab my rotor, and then we will go from there. All right, I'm back with our nicely turned rotor. So as you can see, it's nice and smooth. It looks almost brand new other than the face here. Same thing with the back. So what we're gonna do is we're going to carefully set this on here. If your hands are dirty, personally, I would recommend not trying to touch the face so much so that you don't damage it. And then what I like to do, I like to grab my lug nuts and throw 2 of them on until they're, you know, finger tight. That way, you know where your rotor's gonna sit once you have everything all tightened down. So there's one. Come over here. Tighten this one down. And there we go. All right. Now, so since I've done this before and I had a little bit of trouble getting my brake caliper off, I did something that is going to make this a little bit easier for me because I have the tools available. So those tools are an air impact, which is capable of doing over 100 foot-pounds of tightening torque. So that is really what is necessary, or a wrench and your breaker bar. So here's what we're gonna do. So I took the bolts out of my shock, and that allows me to rock this whole assembly to the side. So like that. See how it's completely independent of the shock? So that allows me to have access to those bolts just a little bit easier. So I'm going to grab my 2 bolts. I'm going to put Loctite on one of them for now. These ones you can be a little bit more generous with, probably 2 drops. So not too much, but enough. And then grab my caliper. We are going to try and slide this on. So sometimes you might have to wiggle it a little bit or readjust from inside just with your hand, which, you know, it's not too big of a deal. Just be careful because you can damage your brake pads before you ever even get them in there. So just like that. So slides on there nice and easy. I'm gonna grab our first bolt and we're just gonna start it so that we still have the ability to rotate everything else that's in here. Almost. So sometimes you have to move it around a good amount just to try and get it to start. And seems like we got it on that one. So now I'm going to come back, grab my other bolt, do my 2 drops of Loctite, and then hopefully get the second one started in there. Come back up to the top. Alright, now I'm just going to use the wrench to sort of tighten them up a little bit, make sure that they aren't gonna strip, so it shouldn't take much effort at all. You know, maybe 2 fingers, not much. Just gonna keep turning it. So with these, you want to make sure that they're nice and tight, because if they're not, your brake caliper could fall off, and then at that point your brakes would fail. And I'm sure we've all been on the road and had that feeling of, what if my brakes failed? So you want to do everything you can to prevent that, and this is one of those ways. Loctite is also a big help when it comes to that, because that stops your bolt from backing out even once you get it in. So almost there. Alright, so now that I've got this top one bolted in, I'm going to move down to the bottom. And since the bottom one's a little bit more accessible, I'm actually going to use our air impact to put them back in. So just be prepared. It's going to be a little bit noisy. Alright. So I got it almost all the way threaded in. Now come back, my ratchet or my breaker bar with my 1/2 inch extension and then my reducer, and then we are going to tighten it up. So, and in this case, since I unbolted the shock to get me access to the top, I now have to put one of them back in. Doesn't really matter too much which one. Normally, I like to do the top one. It's a little bit easier to get to. Just gonna push, slide it through, and just barely thread the nut on. Just enough to hold it there. Now, you can come in here, tighten it.